Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix, and I am back here. Um, it is the 19th of February as we get ready to transit out of the sign of Aquarius into the sign of Pisces. And oh, I can't wait for that. Um, by the way, that is no slight for any of the lovely Piscean people that populate the chat and watch this stream. I'm flying solo today because, well, for a number of reasons, but mainly because I just want to kind of go through some of this Texas stuff and, maybe connect some dots and try to get a bigger picture. Although a lot of you kind of already know what's up, and you are you're on it. You're on the case. You're awake. You're aware, and we are at the next we're at the next stages of dominion and control that is being exerted upon the United States and the West. And this state that I'm living in is obviously in the crosshairs, although it'll be the first, it won't be the last. And things just got very real on a number of levels. I'm going to try to go through some of that stuff today. And I gotta try to keep this show around an hour and a half most, because I got a ton of stuff to do. Things are starting to finally thaw out here. I can see my grass for the most part now, but the damage has been done, and we're going to continue to have to deal with that damage on a lot of different levels. So let's see who's here today. We got Lisa Marie. What's going on, Lisa? Good to see you. Michael Pafford. There's Ryan. Had a nice chat with Ryan this morning. Mia Original Catacorn. There's Philip. What does Philip have to say? Hope everyone is doing as good as they can in this tornado of insanity. Absolutely. T. Jordan in the house. What's going on, Thomas? H. Suttles, present. Oh, look who's here. Look who's here. How do I not get more views for Jasper? I mean, cat videos, I've seen like really lame cat videos get 1 million views. And, not that I'm, looking for a ton of views, but you're getting like a lot of value here. You're getting kind of a cat video and whatever I'm doing. Sometimes there's guests here, right? So maybe I should title this video, Cat, Conspiratorial Cat Does Internet Talk Show. What do you think, Jasper? I think we could up the views. Definitely. What do you think? How are you doing today? He's good. Yeah, you're good. So I've been worrying about some of the stray cats in the neighborhood. And I'm telling you, man, these cats they're resilient. So there's this one cat, is a black cat. It's a he or she. I don't know if it's a he or she. Hard to tell. I think it's a she, though. I get the sense. She was the same black cat that was hanging out by my... He just cracks me up when he looks into the camera. I'm sorry. He just cracks me up when he does that. Yes, I know. There we go. I know. It's your moment. Anyway, it's the same black cat that was hanging out by my water fountain. Here it is again. And this black cat got nearly snatched by a hawk who came flying into my window. So this black cat has survived. And today, the black cat positioned itself below my window. And I leave some of the bird seed on my window out here in the ledge. And so the birds come up. So the black cat has been noticing these birds. And so today, she jumped up and tried to grab one of these birds. So that cat's doing all right. These cats are kind of amazing. Natasha's in the house. Hi, Natasha. JMP Love checking in from the East Coast. 10 Dragon 14. There's my man, Mark Matheny. Hi, Mark. Dana Witten, what's going on from Alabama? Hello, welcome. There's Donna Sullivan. Nunya Beeswax. Well, hello back from Is this Central Texas? Kind of. Kind of. It's not West Texas. It's not East Texas. It's definitely Central Texas. 23 McGraw. Hi from New York, where the rats are all turning on each other. Well, now they have Ted Cruz as their distraction, which we'll talk about. What's going on, my man Steve? Thor by the door in the house. Hello, Half Q. CC Jones. Hi, CC. Good to see you. Andre Garland is here. John G. The life of the flesh in the blood. The life of the flesh of the spirit is in the light. I like it. I like it. El Kabong. There's Joan S. Victoria V. Hello, Double V. April Himmel. Paulette Hansen. No, Texas had to import power before it could turn its resources on. Yeah, it's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad. I may have to do a GoFundMe for my electrical bill. Jesus. Jasper looks skeptical about the whole process. Hey, we got South Africa chiming in. Lizelle Walsh. Hello, Lizelle. Welcome to the show. Orange tabbies are the best. He's an evolved cat. I think you should put some tuna juice on your chin before the show. That would really keep him involved. I know, right? Rosie she loves, like when I have like a tangerine, she loves the sort of the tangerine, the leftover tangerine juice on my finger. She laps it up. She's into it. Love Light Energetics is here. Beth Berry. Hello, Beth. Jasper Filter would be great. Yeah, got to put Jasper in the thumbnail pics. I know, right? I think that's the key. I think you've hit on it. I watch a lot of cat videos, but yours are the best. Well, mine are interactive, and Jasper's pretty special. Jasper is in it to win it. Yes. Michelle is a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. Did you know that? I just found that out. Sam the Miracle Man. What's going on, Sam? Good to see you. By the way, my interview with Sam was the only live stream I've done. I think maybe one or two where I got no thumbs down. No thumbs down. So, Sam, I think that's a testament to your simplicity and your purity. No thumbs down. Nobody could thumbs down your material. Bulletproof. Well done. Uncle Glenn is here. What's going on? Belinda Smith. He is cute, isn't he? He's a good guy. There's Christy Tesmerk. Nice to see you. Jamie checking in from Panama. Catherine Kramer in Florida. Rach Farrow, hey, good to see you. Let's see, Ian Barber. 3 nights of protest in Barcelona for Pablo Hasél, a rapper who's been jailed for anti-monarchy lyrics. Yeah, I saw that. I'm bringing in the blue revolution. I'm reclaiming blue. Blue used to be theoretically conservative. You go back and you look at it was blue. You look at the 1980 election when Reagan won a state, the state was colored blue. And when Carter won a state, which was very few, it was colored red. Then they flipped it. They inverted everything. So we're taking blue back. Susan Cano. Hello, Susan. Steve Letcher. Looks like Texas did not lock in future contracts for natural gas. Oh, boy. We'll talk about that. Atlas says, thanks for continuing to report during the Texas storms, Robert. Your consistency is admirable. I have Saturn in Capricorn. Got to use it. I got a Saturn Pluto trine in my chart. May as well use it, right? May as well rock the consistency aspect here. Can't wait for Aquarius to go away. Well, you're in an Aquarian window that's going to last about 20 years now. Okay, So it's not going away anytime soon. Now the month will go away, and then we're going to be into Pisces, which is a whole other, whole other ball of wax. I'm expecting flooding in Pisces. I think that's the next thing we're gonna get. We're gonna see flooding, which of course is synonymous with the sign heavy water, big water. What about Cuomo? Oh, well, all of a sudden now Cuomo is not the target of derision. It's Ted Cruz. What is Ted Cruz fucking thinking? I mean, even if he just went, like he said he went there to escort his daughter on a trip to Mexico with her friends. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking though, man. I just don't know what he's thinking. That's like you don't really abandon the ship, because now all of a sudden they're going after Ted Cruz, they're going after Greg Abbott. This is regime change. This is exactly what this is. This is regime change. And I talked about this a little bit yesterday. And if you want to kind of know the psychology of power, how it works, go back and watch the 2016 debates where Donald Trump, who was very cagey, by the way, very cagey, and he decided that he was going to take on the biggest threat first. It's exactly what he did. He took on the biggest threat first. And who was it? It was Jeb Bush. And he did that whole, he has no energy. It was very funny. Very, very funny. And that was it, man. Once Donald Trump laid into Jeb Bush, who's an Aquarian, once he laid into him, he was done. He was done. He said, who's the biggest whale here in this group? And then after he was done with Jeb Bush, he just kept going right down the line. The last guy standing was Ted Cruz. Of course, he came out with, it was him and Roger Stone who came out with that stuff around Ted Cruz's father, being from Cuba, somehow, maybe being connected to the Kennedy assassination, because he was in New Orleans with some players that were connected to Kennedy. And that kind of sunk Ted Cruz in some ways, although Ted Cruz would have sunk himself. There's something about Ted Cruz. Even the beer didn't really do it or change it for me. Anyway, so by the time he was done with Cruz, he wasn't even done with Cruz. He was already moving on to Hillary Clinton, right? But the first thing he did is he took on Jeb Bush. He got the whale. It's the same thing with internet censorship. I talked about this before. When they wanted to really turn the screws on internet censorship, who did they go after? They didn't start at Stefan Molyneux. They didn't start at Stephen Corbett. They started with Alex Jones. They went after the whale. That's exactly what you do. When you go in for regime change, when you want to flip the script, you go after the top dog. And you take the top dog down and you work your way down. Why? Well, you do, number one, for effect, psychological effect. And psychological effect is everything. That's right out of Sun Tzu. You want to beat your opponent before you even take to the battlefield. You want to get into their head and beat them. So if you take down the whale, everybody else is like, oh shit, they're vulnerable. Well, what's going to happen to me? I mean, that's the effect, and that's what Texas is. Texas is the whale. And they're going right after this state. And it's only, so when I first moved here, who's this? This is Austin, Texas. Do I want to get it? I don't want to interrupt the flow. So when I first came here, this was in 2012. It was, let me see, it was October of 2013. So Texas had just come out of a serious drought. And when I first came here, I was blown away by how much rain and water this place got. And I came to find out later that that was not really the case. Like that was kind of an aberration. And I think it was October 13th, maybe. I think it might have been October 13th in 2018. We had this huge storm, and it completely just ruined the baseball fields. And I was coaching then. And I remember after the storm happened, I drove down to the baseball fields, and it was amazing what had happened. Like these creeks had overflown, and and all the the stuff. Hold on a second. Who is this? You called me. Who are you? And who are you looking for? I just love that. It's like they call you and you say, "Can I call you later?" And then they say, "Who is this?" Well, shouldn't you fucking know? You're the one that called me. Does that ever happen to you? You get this number. Okay, here they're answering back. It's like, I don't know who this. It just says Austin. It's like, "Can I call you later?" And that's, "Who is this?" Well, you should know. You called me. So they're texting back now. Who are you? And who are you looking for? Anyway, it was devastating what happened with those fields. I mean, all the stuff that was in the creek got pulled up by the water and just dumped onto the parking lot in the field. And the water was so powerful that it was, they use like old, I didn't call you. Maybe you have the wrong number. No worries. Yeah, you did call me. Sorry. You did call me. And that's weird too, right? I didn't call you. You just called me. Anyway, the telephone poles that they use they chop them up and they use them for like parking, like, you could just put your car up against them, but you don't want to go over them, right? And these are pretty long versions of that. They weren't chopped up into like little logs. They're pretty big. Those things, the water that would overflow from the creek carried those things all the way out to the fields. I mean, it's crazy. And, really just, and those fields are in a floodplain, which, a lot of Austin is in a floodplain. So I used to see this stuff. I'm like, wow, this is really crazy. And then in 2015, it was the worst. It was the absolute worst. Because in Wimberley, they had the river overflow in Wimberley. People died. It was really nuts. So I actually ran across this story from 2015, and it's kind of interesting. Let me see here if I can find this thing. Yeah, it's right here. So this is from a TV station in Houston. Check this out. Conspiracy theorists ponder if military attack Texas with storms ahead of Jade Helm. I'm telling you, those storms were supernatural. But this is what they do. They'll bring this stuff up. They'll make fun of it. There'll be some gaslighting. And then they move on. In some deep, dark corners of the internet, folks are crying foul at the weather and pointing fingers at Uncle Sam. Could it be, they wonder, a secret plan to pummel Texas with crippling rains weakening its civilian defenders before the troops swoop in for Operation Jade Helm on July 15th? That's the latest from many of the first websites to foment Jade Helm fervor in Texas. Speculation and actual evidence has been released in the last 2 days, and has many believing that Texas is under attack with weather manipulation technology. This goes all the way back to 2015. HARP attack tropical storm Bill to get stronger over Texas. We're at the website. So this is nothing new. This is nothing new. People have been talking about this for a while now. And I think that we're probably dealing with another version of that again. 4th, 5th generation warfare. All right, let's do a little invocation, and then we'll get into the rest of the show. All right, here we go. Dear blessed and holy Father, Mother God of the great central sun, within the universal light, which is the light of Yeshua, Sananda, Emmanuel, and all the great avatars who have graced our experience on this plane of existence, we ask that only the highest and best information, wisdom, and truth come through this channel at this time for everybody watching and experiencing it. We ask that the qualities, we affirm and decree that the qualities of truth and clarity, persistence, observation, discernment, perception, intelligence, empathy, compassion, resiliency, fortitude, higher mind, courage, strength, and above all, love. We affirm and decree that these qualities are present now and at all times with us. We ask that any karmic residue be cleansed, purified, clarified, and removed from this stream. Okay, let's get going. So a number of you have probably seen this. This is from State of the Nation. It is called, appropriately enough, we're going to go through the document, Texageddon, a false flag geoterrorist operation with multiple nefarious NWO goals. Globalists directed geoengineers aimed their powerful weather weapons at the Lone Star State to conduct covert acts of false flag geoterrorism, purposely carried out by the NWO cabal to paralyze Texas Patriot movement and shut down power grid. So let me talk about the Texas Patriot movement, okay? Let me talk about it. The Texas Patriot movement is based on this Texan. And like I said, I know the guy who proposed that legislation. He's right down the street here. That way. Ace Hardware, Kyle Buterman. And I know Kyle. I've talked to Kyle. And, you know, I get Kyle. I know where Kyle's coming from. Kyle is a minority. He's a minority in the Texas state legislature. There may be about 3 or 4 other people who actually see eye to eye with Kyle. Greg Abbott is not a Republican. He's not a conservative. He's a rhino. He's a Zino. He's a Zionist rhino. That's what Greg Abbott is. He's a Zino. Greg Abbott loves him some Israel. He loves him some Bibi Netanyahu. He's been to Israel. He's hung out there with Bibi. He's a Zino. He actually made a stipulation that I think where was it? It was it Port Arthur? It was one of the cities that got hit by Harvey. I know I've talked about this before, that if you're going to get Harvey relief funds, that you basically promised that you weren't going to boycott or divest from Israel. Like that was part of the deal. How does that enter the equation? You experience a so-called natural disaster, you're entitled to emergency funds, and yet there's a proviso. Like that's Greg Abbott, okay? That's Greg Abbott. He's tight with Mike Pence. Who is Mike Pence tight with? He's tight with, you know, the charismatic Catholic community who all believe in the rapture, and they're all connected into this kind of, you know, Christian Zionist brotherhood that wants to support Israel at all costs because, in effect, it preserves their idea of revelation and the rapture and all the stuff that goes along with it. You know what's really interesting about that cult, and it's a cult, by the way. What's interesting about that cult is at one point, right? This is where everything gets really twisted. Like if you really look at the rapture, you look at like what's supposed to happen during the rapture, which, by the way, has no correlation anywhere in the King James Bible. None. I'm not sure if it's in the Living Bible. I'm not a connoisseur of the Bible, but I know it's not in the King James Version. It is in the Scofield Bible. But the idea here is that the reason why Israel needs to have its own state, not a bifurcated state, not like, okay, well, we have a dual state solution where there's Palestine and there's Israel. The reason why it's supposed to just be Israel is because it coheres to biblical prophecy. Now, in the second coming, Christ comes back as Rambo. And he gives the Israelites, aka the Jews, one final opportunity to repent. And if they don't, he will smite them down and remove them from the face of the planet. That's really one of the main talking points, one of the main sort of pieces around the rapture. Now, what happened is that somewhere along the way, I'd say probably around 9/11, 2001, the whole Israeli/Jewish thing got replaced by Muslims. It was this weird kind of transfiguration that all of a sudden now it was really not about the Israelis or the Jews that had to be removed, by Rambo Jesus. It was now the Muslims. It was like, okay, we got to remove those dirty Muslims. It was Muslim. Thanks to 9/11 and thanks to a lot of people who became Muslim haters. We're going to just move the brown people in there. That's what it's about. But nowhere in the Bible or the Scofield Bible does it talk about the removal of Muslims. It was just kind of reframed that way. Meanwhile, you've got people like John Hagee and Pat Robertson. And what's interesting about Pat Robertson is, Pat Robertson initially was kind of a conspiracy guy, kind of talked about the House of Rothschild initially, and that kind of went away. So now you've got, these faith peddlers, and they're all about Israel, and they're all about, their nonprofits and, helping these starving people in Israel get food, or, helping to get somebody who's oppressed, this little old lady, little old, Jewish woman who's oppressed and living in Russia, to send money and donations. What is it called? Eagle's Wings or something like that. So that they could go to Israel and be taken care of. But once they're there, apparently they're still poor and they still need money, and I would see these things like, wow, man, this is, we send Israel $40 billion a year and they can't carve out a few shekels for these poor women. So this is what happened. They changed the teleological landscape, right? That's what they did. They reframed everything. So now all of a sudden, somehow, some way, it was really the Muslims that needed to be smited, not the Israelis, not the Jews. Well, can't have that happen because, these people are our friends and they've got a lot of money and we do business with them, and so we got to reset this thing, right? So anyway, that's kind of a part of the story. Let me go back here. And Abbott, the reason I'm talking about it is because Abbott is a guy that has deep ties, just the way it is. And it's going to be interesting to see what he does. How he's going to respond to this. Because he hasn't done a very good job responding to the corona crisis. And he was okay for a little while, of course, state of emergency, whatever. But it wasn't until Mike Pence showed up. Mike Pence came here and met with him and Robert Jeffers, who is the biggest megachurch in Dallas, one of the biggest megachurches in the United States. And then once that happened, all of a sudden, Abbott just went full-blown leftard. Just full-blown leftard. And he wouldn't deal with anybody. So anyway, let's get back to Kyle Biederman. The state here, in terms of this Patriot stuff, they like to think it's a big movement. I'm telling you, it's not a big movement. It's one guy who actually lives in the town that I'm in and got this thing on the books. There's maybe 3 or 4 other, Republicans who might support it. And then you've got a Texas state legislature that's filled with rhinos and Democrats. Like Texas is more of an idea than an actuality. But apparently it's an idea that got a lot of attention. And is it, and maybe this is really what it's about. Maybe it's more about sending a message than it is about seeing it as this actuality or this real thing that's actually being carried out. All right, let's go a little bit further here. It is unparalleled by any standard. We never, ever in the 9 years that I've been here. Let's see, 9 years. It'll be 10. It'll be 10 years next year. A decade. Wow, that's mind blowing. The 9 years I've been here, I've seen snow. I've never seen anything like this. And I think you have to go back to 1919 or something like that to have anything even remotely close to this. So here's the old weather map here, right? Look at this. It's just right down. And of course, the Western United States, California, Colorado, you're getting some of that, right? You guys in the South, you're getting some of it in the East, Northeast, not so much. It says because Texas is a very red state and ready to rumble with the Biden administration, and that's why. I would think so. There is some of that. Greg Abbott basically pumped the brakes on the immigration stuff that Biden theoretically signed into an executive order, right? So here we go. Let's look at this. Not only that, but Greg Abbott's executive team has prepared legislation that will fly in the face of Biden's 2021 plan to lock down the state and every other state too. These upcoming governors, EOs, will push back hard on Biden's absurd and unlawful executive orders that are promoting Obama's ultra-liberal cultural Marxist agenda. So here are the things that Texas does have in its favor, and these things are true. Texas created its own bullion vault and bank a couple of years ago. Texas accepts payments in gold and silver. New York City NASDAQ moved to Texas a few months. I don't know about that. They talked about it. I'm not sure if that's true. Texas is suing Biden's administration over immigration. That is true. Texas sued the states guilty of proven election fraud. That is true. Texas is openly speaking of Texit from the union. That is true. Again, that's Kyle Biederman and, about maybe 4 other people. Biden canceled the Keystone Pipeline. That has an impact with Texas. Texas governor in the process of suing Biden's administration over the Keystone Pipeline. Texas won't have it, none of it, and Team Biden knows it. It's not just Team Biden. This is about the West, okay? This is about the West. In Texas, theoretically, is the Wild West. It's Western civilization. And Texas could be a country unto itself. So they have to take it down. Take a look at the following news reports to grasp the sheer depth and breadth of this ongoing series of false flag geoterrorist attacks, false flags, because they're attributed to Mother Nature or an act of God, when they're really crimes against humanity committed by an incorrigible cabal of criminally insane psychopaths. Okay. Geo-engineer weather warriors are literally killing the people of Texas. All right, let's see what that's about. What do we have here? It's another state of the nation. So here we go. Very unusual. Right, where is it happening up here? Like, normally you would see something come from way up north. No, it's just kind of originating here and then being pulled down. My sister lives in Port Lavaca, hasn't had electricity since 1 a.m. Monday. By the way, I went out to the senior center yesterday. Not the senior center, I'm sorry, the school, the elementary school, to go check on some of the people there. There had about 40 people there, and a lot of them were old. It was really kind of scary, actually. They were mostly seniors. A lot of them lived outside of town. They lived in Harper, which is west of here, and they hadn't had power since Friday, I think. Friday, Saturday, like really bad. No power, and it's 15 degrees out. Like, you could die. These people could die. And some of them are on medical devices. There was this one woman, she was hooked into her oxygen tank. And I know it's air pressure and stuff like that, but who knows what else she needed. I don't think she was in a motorized wheelchair, but she was wheelchair bound. Anyway, it was definitely scary. And I thought to myself, these people this is going to be a tough time for older people and for people that have, sort of difficult physical conditions, like the Bill Gateses of the world, the Zeke Emanuels of the world. They're not going to see these people in a humanitarian light. These people are going to be a blight in the system. Like it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult we've already seen that. I mean, just look what happened with the killing fields of, upstate New York or, Rochester or Batavia or wherever they had, these elder care facilities, these senior homes, right? We've already seen, we've seen the future, and it's not pretty. And those people living on the land out there, they depend on their ability to be able to pump their water and heat their homes, and they are screwed. And who knows what it's going to be like for them when they go back. And apparently some of them are being moved to the Baptist church on Saturday because they've got to do something with the school for Monday. Anyway, serious stuff. Pretty serious stuff. We've got problems with the water now. Apparently, it's not pumping. There's parasites in the water. I mean, this thing is bad. It's really bad. And it's not going to be fixed overnight. They shut down all these coal plants. They shut them down. They shut them down in favor of these turbines out in West Texas. And they, whether they were frozen or not, they weren't able to meet the demand. So guess what happened? We had to get energy from other states. And let me show you the cost of that energy. It's going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your fucking mind. And this is what we're talking about here. We're talking 4th and 5th generation warfare. Now we're dealing with money. Outages morph into outrage as Texans slapped with mind-blowing power bills. I can't wait to see my bill. In fact, one of the things I need to do today is I need to go next door because my neighbor works for the utilities inside the city. I got to talk to them. The rolling blackouts that plunged up to 15 million Texans into darkness amid historic cold snap are diminishing. By the end of the week, about 188,000 customers were without power in the state on Friday morning. Days after power prices jumped from $50 per megawatt to more than $9,000 the horror stories pour in for those who had power during this week, during grid chaos, as they're mind-boggled how their energy bills skyrocketed. None of these horrifying power bills below should be a shock, as we described to readers in the piece titled Power Bills to the Moon, Chaos, Shock, as electricity prices explode across the U.S. Texans who were on a variable or index plans with power companies are only now reporting their bills have jumped hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars for the month. Royce Pierce told Newsweek he owes electric company Gritty $8,162 for his electricity usage this month. He said that's a massive increase from his usual $387 bill. It's mind-blowing. I honestly didn't believe the price at first. It's not a great feeling knowing that there is a looming bill that we just can't afford. What the fuck is going to happen here now? Greg Abbott, who's been pussyfooting with a fake crisis, a fake emergency, now has got a real emergency staring him right in the face. Right in the face. So he's going to have to pony up. The state is going to have to pony up and help people with their power bills. You know what's interesting? Biden has not declared Texas a state of emergency. Have you noticed that? He has not declared Texas a state of emergency. What did Trump do? Trump always declared a state of emergency. Like, you need money, you get it, with the exception of Oregon. Like, he didn't do that with Oregon. If I could be mistaken, maybe he did later on. But he did with California in the fires. He didn't do it with Biden has not done this with Texas. Isn't that interesting? I wonder why. Let's see. Other horror stories of soaring power bills flood social television. You see, this is all fourth and fifth generation warfare. Power goes down. And then what? The variable rate kicks in. And now all of a sudden, you've got these vipers profiting off of disaster. This is disaster capitalism 101. Putting people at risk for not being able to pay their power bill. Well, guess what happens? Guess what will happen? If you're not going to be able to pay your power bill, you're probably not going to be able to stay in your house. Yeah, that's a real possibility. That's a real possibility. You may not be able to. Why? Because you won't be able to have electricity. You won't be able to power up your refrigerators. For all intents and purposes, your property could be condemned. This is how serious this is. This is where we are now. And again, this is fourth and fifth generation warfare. They just leveled the state of Texas. Not just with the power grid, but with potentially what people are going to owe. Now, again, we're already dealing with a state of emergency with this, scamdemic. Now we've got a real one. And are we going to have a double state of emergency? Like, what happens now? And that's really interesting because we have, theoretically, we've got this PPE money that's been sent to this town. And we're dealing with a real fucking emergency. Are they going to use the PPE money to help people with their electrical bills? They should. That should be number one. That should be numero uno. Instead of paying for who knows what with rolling out the vaccine and making sure that we've got all of our signage in place and all of our first responders are getting extra pay just in case they have to be run out of their house in the middle of the night to, deal with somebody who's coughing, right? I mean, this is where all the money went. $669,000 PPE. Mine is over 1,000. I'm not sure how 700 square foot apartment. I've been keeping at 60 degrees. When your electric company tells you to switch but there's been a hold on switching for over a week now, using little as possible, 1,300 square foot. This is my bill. $3,800. Look at this. Look at that. That's a bill right there. Gritty. That's because they bought energy. This is an Enron scam. Enron and E Corp set it all up. They set it all up. They had the variable rate. And the other thing that happened is that Biden, with the executive order for the Keystone Pipeline, he had a 90-day moratorium on what Trump had done. And Trump had an executive order that basically said, look, we're going to keep our energy independent. We're not going to rely on China. China, by the way, has been providing most of the generators since 2009. And Trump put a moratorium on that. China provides the generators for our power structure and our grid. And these generators, weigh anywhere between 100 to 100 to 400 tons? I mean, these things are huge. So it would be very easy to embed any kind of software or any kind of hardware and software inside of these things. You could shut them down. You could overamp them. I mean, we are so vulnerable, so incredibly vulnerable in terms of the power grid, in terms of all these other countries that have gotten our hooks in us, okay? And it's not just China. Israel's gotten its hooks in us. China's gotten its hooks in us. England, through MI6 and MI5 and the Crown, has gotten its hooks in us. The multinational corporations and the banking families have gotten their hooks in us. Like we have been infested with international parasites in this country. And nobody has been really paying attention. Some people have. I mean, I've talked about this. I've certainly have talked about dual citizens in government. I don't know. I mean, whoever thought that was a good idea should have their head examined. And now people are waking up. Why is this happening? Why? And when you bring it up, oh my God, you're a nationalist, you're a nativist. Now you're on a list. Oh, we can't have that. And when they talk to Biden about the Uyghurs, well, you just have to understand that there are cultural differences here. There are cultural differences. And we don't want to get in the way of that. We want to stay. Oh, okay. This thing is dangerous. This is really dangerous. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and how the state of Texas is going to respond and how Abbott's going to respond. We're going to learn a lot about Greg Abbott here over the next couple of weeks. And Texas is not uniform. There are a lot of snowflakes that live here. Austin is filled with snowflakes. Houston, tons of snowflakes. Dallas now has a lot of snowflakes. San Antonio, snowflake city. So we have a lot of snowflakes in Texas. And I think it's 43% Democrat. So and even the Republicans here, they don't really get it. They don't get it. I'm sure if you talk to people on the city council here, they would say that they're Republican or they're conservative, but only by association. And again, I wouldn't call myself a Republican at all. I have no use for that party affiliation. Anyway, so what is this all about? What are we dealing with here? Well, I'm going to take you back to a document called, guess what? Silent Weapons for a Quiet War. Silent Weapons for a Quiet War. Here's some of the historical information on it. Silent war technology has evolved from operations research, OR, strategic and tactical methodology under the military management in England during World War II. The original purpose of operations research was to study the strategic and tactical problems of air and land defense with the objective of effective use of limited military resources against foreign enemies, i.e. logistics. It was soon recognized by those in positions of power that the same methods might be useful for totally controlling a society, but better tools were necessary. Okay, so there's a long history here about silent weapons for a quiet war. 1952, you've got the Rockefeller Foundation involved. They got on the ground floor by making a 4-year grant to Harvard College or Harvard University, funding the Harvard Economic Research Project for the study of the structure of the American economy. 1 year later, 1949, the U.S. Air Force joined in. Isn't that interesting? 1952, the grant period terminated and a high-level meeting of the elite was held to determine the next phase of social operations research. The Harvard Project had been very fruitful, as is borne out by the publication of some of its results in 1953, suggesting the feasibility of economic social engineering, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so I wanted to get to the energy part here. Energy is recognized as the key to all activity on Earth. Natural science is the study of the sources and control of natural energy, and social science, theoretically expressed as economics, is the study of the sources and control of social energy. Both are bookkeeping systems, mathematics. Therefore, mathematics is the primary energy science, and the bookkeeper can be king if the public can be kept ignorant of the methodology of the bookkeeping. All science is merely a means to an end. The means is knowledge, the end is control. Beyond this remains only one issue: who will be the beneficiary? Let's get deeper into the energy piece here. General energy concepts. In the study of energy systems, there always appears 3 elementary concepts. These are potential energy, kinetic energy, and energy dissipation. And corresponding to these concepts, there are 3 idealized, essentially pure physical counterparts called passive components. In the science of physical mechanics, the phenomena of potential energy is associated with a physical property called elasticity or stiffness and can be represented by a stretched spring. In electronic science, potential energy is stored in a capacitor instead of a spring. This property is called capacitance instead of elasticity or stiffness. In the science of physical mechanics, the phenomenon of kinetic energy is proposed with a physical property called inertia or mass. It can be represented by a mass or a flywheel in motion. In electronic science, kinetic energy is stored in an inductor in a magnetic field instead of a mass. This property is called inductance instead of inertia. In the science of physical mechanics, the phenomena of energy dissipation is associated with a physical property called friction or resistance and can be represented by a dash pot or other device which converts energy into heat. In electronic science, this is like coal, right? In electronic science, dissipation of energy is performed by an element called either resistor or conductor. The term resistor can be the one being the one generally used to describe a more ideal device employed to convey electronic energy efficiently from one location to another. The property of a resistance or conductor is measured either resistance or conductance reciprocals. So what we're dealing with here in terms of energy, and by the way, I'm going to put this link right here so you guys, if you're not familiar with silent weapons for a quiet war, it is a blueprint, right? It is a blueprint. So what we're dealing with here is classic energy on a couple of scales. One, we have the actual crisis with energy, right? Crisis with energy. And 2, we have the economic crisis with energy. We're dealing with, how people have accrued their energy, which is money. Money is an accrual of energy. You do something, theoretically, and you apply some form of energy and you get something out of it. before you would chop a piece of wood and you get wood out of that, right? So, and you would be able to convert that into putting that into your stove, and you could cook with it, you could heat your house. So you were transferring physical energy from your body into physical energy that you would use to heat your home. Like, it's kind of a one-to-one transference. In the 20th century, that changes. We're dealing with things like electricity, and it gets even more abstract with things like Bitcoin, where there is huge amounts of energy that's being transferred, usually with the mining, which, by the way, is also kind of an interesting thing to think about, because we're going through a major Bitcoin like surge again, and they have to use huge and insane amounts of energy in order to mine the Bitcoin. So, is that playing a role also during what we're going through? And I don't think we know everything about what's happened. We have some ideas, right? The coal plants were shut down. That's happened over the last few years as E Corp has begun to move Texas into Greenville. But is that really the case? Do we really know everything about what's happened here? Or did they divert a lot of energy during a time where there was an energy crisis so that they could use huge amounts of energy to potentially do massive amounts of mining on Bitcoin? Now, I don't know if there's any correlation to this, but you have to think about these things, especially now when Bitcoin is like going through the roof again. So here's where there's the conversion of energy in terms of the social economy and energy when it relates to power and the grid. And literally, I think we've been hit with an energy weapon, right? An energy weapon that's disabled us. It's disabled our ability to do any number of things, to heat our homes, to travel, to go to work, right? It's disabled our routines. It's disabled our structures. For some people, they literally had to leave their house and go to other places. I mean, that's really disabling. If you look at what happened like in the first days of this thing, they had that huge pileup outside of Dallas. It was huge, and people lost their lives. I'm sure probably a good chance that some people might have even gotten physically disabled with that. Certainly cars got disabled. And now you're going to see an economy be disabled, potentially. And what about food? We haven't even gotten into the food part. We have livestock here. And I know people were hustling to keep their animals alive in this area. I mean, huge. Trying to keep their chickens alive and their goats alive and their cows alive. Because we've had cold weather and it could last maybe 1 or 2 days, but a week at minus 30 and no power to like maybe bring your animals in a barn and heat the barn. I mean, this is serious shit. And Texas supplies a lot of crops to the rest of the world. And I don't know, the exact timing of the planting cycle, but I'm betting that things have been affected. Like the planting cycle has a really, very specific time, and it's not February, but we don't know like how this is going to affect certain farms with irrigation and being able to basically get those crops into the ground and be able to maintain them, grow. And if that's the case, now we're going to have a food crisis. This is huge, right? This is fourth and fifth generational warfare, and people don't understand it, and they don't know what's going on. And they're going to point fingers, and people on their left are going to, point fingers at Ted Cruz and point fingers at Abbott and secession and Texas is racist and all this bullshit, but they don't really understand what's happening. And they won't understand it until finally everything is shut down. Everything is shut down. And they think that at some point they're going to live in the Emerald City, which happens to be green. and they're going to live in Agenda 21 land, and everybody's going to run around and eat synthetic meat and drink plant-based cricket smoothies and have little powered scooters that take you from your bullshit universal basic income job to, I don't know, yoga, right? I mean, just wait till that world happens. It's not going to be a very, very fun or pleasant world. And you think utopia is on the horizon, and all you got to do is get rid of the meat eaters and get rid of the fossil fuels, and you'll be able to, have a happy dance. You'll have a very, very rude awakening. But they don't understand that. They don't know it. All they care about is getting rid of the other, eliminating the other. And as soon as we get rid of these people, as soon as more Rush Limbaughs of the world are eliminated, as soon as more of these meat eaters are eliminated, as soon as we get all the cars off the highways, as soon as we replace all the fossil fuels with, renewable energy, finally we'll be able to have the wonderful, beautiful, tolerant planet that is going to be peaceful. Nobody will be able to make us feel uncomfortable. No, that doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. When that happens, you'll find out that you've been put into a cage and you won't even know it. In fact, you're already in the cage now. You're just waiting for the actual cage to descend upon you. So I was looking at some astrology around this, and I was looking at when Texas was started. And I have Texas's chart. It's kind of interesting. I think it's interesting. Where is it? Just had it up here. I hate this. Uno momentito, por favor. All right. Ah, there it is. Okay, so Texas became a state on December 29th, 1845. Right after the Alamo. Becomes a state. Waste any time. So Texas is a Capricorn state. In new moon in Capricorn. Now, I just threw 12 noon up there. I don't know when they actually officially signed that document. I don't have a timestamp for that. But I would assume it would have been somewhere between 9 and noon. So I chose noon, high noon. Puts the sun in the midheaven. So Texas does have that Capricornian kind of feel, right? I mean, I see the people here. They're very Capricornian. They're kind of very sort of system. They kind of go with the program in some ways. Like I was, kind of blown away by how many people just said, okay, we'll wear the mask, especially here in an area where we really don't have to wear the mask. They're good at following orders. They're good at dealing, kind of with authority in sort of a, hey, let's, follow the leader sort of way. And Texas is kind of formal. Like the energy here is formal, and people are nice, but they're very formal, and they do favor. They do favor being, polite. There's social codes here with Texas, and if you're respectful to people, you'll be okay. If you're kind of a jerk or a dick, they will freeze you out. You won't get anything. So as long as you follow that kind of Capricornian code, you can do okay. There's a lot of Aquarius here. Now, what's interesting is that Texas is about to go through its Saturn return. Look at that. Saturn return time for Texas. So you go back and look at the last time Saturn was here was when, guess who? one of the favorite sons of Texas, George H.W. Bush, was president and sending us off to the Iraq War and the New World Order. When else was Saturn in Aquarius? When JFK was assassinated. And where was he assassinated? Texas. Where? Dallas. Who was the vice president? Johnson. Where is he from? Texas. Here we go. Here we go. Texas is going to play a role here, right? It's going to play a role because, number one, we've had clearly two major events happen. Well, the major event with Iraq really was more about the president from Texas. But, it's kind of important because, kind of got us here. And every time Saturn has been in Aquarius, there's this potential for a reformat, which we've talked about. David and I talked about that this past week. But then who takes hold of the reformatting? It's these Saturnian agents. It's the hierarchy, the so-called elite. So here we go. Texas is about to go through its Saturn return. And Saturn will get to 13 degrees by the beginning of July. So it's getting very close here. Very close. And I'm wondering really now if this thing that Kyle talked about will become more, because it's only going to go one or two ways. And this is where the battle is going to take place. There are going to be people here who are part of the 47% or the 43%. And they're going to want to have Texas become more of the whatever this thing, the United States is, whatever it is. They're going to want more of that. They're going to want more top-down control from Washington. They're going to want Texas to be less of a state. You're also going to get people looking at this and saying to themselves, holy shit, look at what's happened here. We had 5 people that didn't even live in this state, and they were making policy decisions for our energy. And I guarantee you, like the 57% of the people who live in this state who claim to be Republicans or conservatives, they don't like Biden. And if they had some of that go along to get along energy, and we're just going to wait till 2022, like that shit is going away. They're looking at like, oh, maybe this Texas thing might actually be a good thing. So one of the things that we've learned really quickly here in 2021 is that when theoretically there's an attempt to do something, it's something that involves some level of harm or misfortune or character assassination, whatever those things are, they tend to come back now, right? There's this energy that's like boomeranging and not really working out the way that they thought it was. I mean, just look at the Lincoln Project and what's going on with the Lincoln Project. That's really bad. Like, it's really bad. And you've got people stepping down from the Lincoln Project, stepping away from the Lincoln Project because, they're grooming young boys. And it was this major, liberal, progressive pack. And it's infested with pedophiles. We're seeing this now. We're seeing, look at Cuomo. We're seeing this energy get this sort of psychic boomerang. So if they're using this 4th and 5th generation warfare to debilitate and destabilize Texas, I think there's going to be a different outcome with this. Look, I'm not sure if Elon Musk is a boy genius. I think he's kind of a made man. But let's just for the sake of argument here, that there's kind of a there with Elon Musk. Like, he's living here now. He's living here. So if you were Greg Abbott, and there's pictures of him and Elon Musk together, yeah, like that, like, wouldn't you avail yourself of Mr. Boy Tesla, and maybe come up with a different kind of energy solution, a better energy solution? Yeah, you probably would. What's interesting about the chart here is, we've got this all this Aquarian energy, and I can kind of feel that with, because there's a bit of a detached quality with Texas and Texans in general, bit of a detached quality. A lot of Aries energy, Mars-Uranus conjunction. That's interesting. And look at where Chiron is, right there. And what is Uranus? Uranus is energy. Uranus is electricity. And there we've got Chiron, right on Uranus, right on Texas natal Uranus. It's right there. What is it, 5 degrees? 6 degrees. Look at that. Bang. Right on Uranus. What's it doing? Squaring Texas sun at 7 degrees. Hello, we're going through a crisis. What are you going to do? What are we going to do here? Now, theoretically, Mars-Uranus can be innovative. Can be. But in order to be innovative, what do you have to do? You've got to buck against the system. This is the system. The traditional sun in Capricorn. You can see the wealth in Texas. Jupiter, 0 degrees Taurus. That's money. That's oil. It's natural resources. That's right there, right? And we've got the trine to Mercury and the trine to the sun. So there's a lot of abundance just built into this chart. And what's also interesting is that by degree, especially with Venus and especially with Neptune, we got a sextile. We got a sextile with Jupiter, which again, Venus-Jupiter sextiles are great for abundance, and it's great for. So with Aquarius, it's about creating something new and then tapping into natural resources. So let's see what happens here. With that, I don't have a lot of faith in Abbott. He's a Scorpio. I think his sun is right around here, which is probably why he does so well. Why he's been able to kind of float to the top. True node in Scorpio, Juno in Scorpio, right around Greg Abbott's sun. Well, let's see what you got, man. Let's see what you got, Professor X. Because now you got a real crisis on your hand. Now we're going to find out what you're all about. So this is what's happening here. We're going through the Saturn return. And what's interesting is that both times Saturn was in Aquarius, it was connected with the state of Texas, either directly with Kennedy, with Johnson, who's from here, in Dallas, and GHWB, who supposedly was there in Dallas on the day that Kennedy passed away. Oh, and a big shout out to Lucy, who listens to the show. And I've talked about Lucy's husband, who actually was there. He was there when Kennedy was wheeled into the hospital room after he got his brains blown out, and actually tried to save him. And I have a great story. And I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this. It's a great story. He just recently passed away. And the last words out of his mouth was he looked at her and he said, "Let's do this again." And just think about that for a moment. That's being aware, right? In that moment, when you're about ready to step through the veil and go to the other side, you have that clarity and you look at that person. You're not afraid of where you're going, and you're not attached to what you leave behind. But let's do this again. That's an affirmation right there. All right. We're going to find out. We're going to find out what we're made of, aren't we? We're going to find out what we're made of here. Hey, look, we're on the front lines. The technobrat herself, Emily Moyer, she's going to be moving here. She's moving to Austin. She'll be here in a few weeks.
So we got reinforcements coming in, and I think this is interesting. I think it's interesting. I think this is exactly what this fucking state needed. Right? This is exactly what we needed to stir things up. And locally, it's going to be interesting as well because, as you know, I'm running for city council. We're going to see how that thing goes. But one of the things that I found out was our city manager here was past president 2019 of something called the Texas Power Group. So theoretically, our city manager might know a little bit about what might have happened here and where we might be able to improve our game. So that's what's happening, at least as far as I can see it right now. And obviously, there are people whose lives have been severely disrupted. I'll keep you posted on the electrical stuff as I shudder to think about my energy bill. I've got good water. So let me just say this. All right. I was prepared for this. I was prepared. Why? Because I practice what I preach. I was prepared. Okay. If the power went out, I was good. Water, I'm good. Food, I'm good. The only thing I didn't have enough of was cat litter. There's a hole in my game there. It's cat litter. Do I have enough, of those things to like hold out for a super long period of time? No. But I certainly had enough to get through, this phase and a little bit more. Everybody should do it, man. You got to have at least 30 days worth of food and water. Everybody, if you live in a house, you should have a generator. Generator is not a long-term solution, but you should have a generator. And I definitely recommend multi-fuel generators. You can get ones now that have diesel and gas and propane. You can buy them. You should have a few solar cells. At least maybe 3 or 4 panels, so you can, keep your batteries running, keep your refrigerators plugged in. If you need to do that, those things are important. So those are baseline things, like baseline stuff. And if you have that, you'll be able to get through a lot, or at least buy yourself enough time. Bugging out is difficult. Unless you have a bug out location that you could bug out for a couple of months. Like bugging out is like, most times people are just going to have to make a stand where they are if the shit hits the fan, and do your best to hang in there with that. Anyway, there you go. Cat litter bags can be used as sandbags too. Throw those cats out at night. They can roam and have fun. My cats have been indoor cats the entire time I've had them. So if push came to shove, I'd probably do it. Roaming and having fun, I don't know. I know about that. Let's see. Oh my God, I'm so far behind in this prepping thing. You don't want to be caught with your pants down, man. I'm telling you, we aren't going to vote our way out of this, guys. No, we're not going to vote our way out. Let me just be clear about this, okay? I want to be clear about why I'm running for city council, okay? And I've gotten a lot of support for this. Number one, at the very least, I want to talk about things so that people can hear them, all right? Because for a brief period of time, I'm going to have a platform in this place, okay? I'm going to have a platform in this place. And whether they're into my ideas or not, they're going to get to hear them. And the local newspaper won't print my letters. When we have a city council meeting, you can't get into a question and an answer period. It's just one way, right? So for a 2-month period of time, I'm going to have the opportunity to have a voice. And some people might just hear it. They might just hear it. Now, if you have a different idea and you don't, and look, and I get that you don't want to be a part of the system, and the system is failing. We're seeing it right now. The system is breaking down, and it's breaking down because they're engineering the breakdown of the fucking system. I get it, right? But if you're going to create something else, if you're going to do something else, then like go do that, right? Go do that. Go somewhere, go find a patch of land and go hang out with a group of people and go create something new, right? Go do it. If you don't think you can be a part of the system, and look, there's value in that. There's value in that. And at some point I may even opt into that. But that's not what I'm doing now. And if I can wake a few people up along the way, that's great. And look, it would be if I won, it would be like Robert Redford at the end of The Candidate. You ever see that movie? Like, now what? Like, I'd kind of have a now what moment. But it'd be kind of interesting in some ways, because at the very least, right, I could see how things could work on the inside. And it would be a real character study of people in kind of that arena. It'd be a really interesting character study. And and I'm a wild card, and I've got some other ideas, right, that have not been probably heard or talked about in some way. So I'm looking forward to at least having a voice here. But I think if you want to do something outside of the system, and I think that that's really great and valid, then by all means, like, go stake your claim. Go stake your claim. Go out and go homestead. Go out there, defend your property, learn how to fire a gun, right? Learn how to grow your own food and figure out how you're going to get like a 3D printer, or do whatever you're going to do, which is what I'd love to do at some point in time. So, I think that's a real viable alternative in reality. It's viable. It's, make it happen. Carpe diem. In the meantime, at the very least, I'll have like an opportunity to like shoot my mouth off and see if I can rattle a few cages. Okay. I've always believed that no matter what you think about who is hearing you, at least the words are spoken. You never really know Well, that was interesting. So I was just, talking, and then all of a sudden my computer just shut down, just went black. And now I can't get back on it. It's not recognizing my password. That's really weird. That's really, really weird. So anyway, I think I'm good. I think I said just about everything I needed to say today. And look, we're in this together. Whether you're in Texas or whether you're in California or whether you're in England or whether you're in South Africa or Australia, we're in this together. I mean, this is it. This is the big time Aquarian message that we really need to get. And the game is on. This is not a rehearsal. We're in it. Okay. I'll be back on Sunday night with David Palmer. And he's going to come over here. Well, actually to this channel, the 11th House channel. And I think we're going to be trying to get into like really what's in store for the rest of 2021. We're going to try and wrap our heads around that and maybe get into some predictive modeling with some astrology. So there you go. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Yeah, that was weird. It was just all of a sudden my screen just went blank. It's like, oh, that's strange. And it had nothing to do with, it was not a YouTube thing. Anyway, thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for being here today. Take care. Stay warm. And keep your head on the swivel. Bye for now.